Hi everyone, this is Rev Kymmi. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I'm Dr. G, and this is our Season 2, Episode 2, Natalie Wood, Tipster Behind the Scenes.
We are going to discuss a 41-year-old case, a big mystery to the world. America's sweetheart, Natalie Wood. What happened to her that day? We are going to tell you what happened that day on the yacht Splendor.
Yeah, that infamous day was November 29th, 1981, off the island of Catalina down by Los Angeles in California. And, of course, it was just after Thanksgiving. And this is, I was out of high school when this happened. But quite frankly, I've learned, Kymmi, I've learned more about this case in the last couple of days, the last month, than I ever knew about it.
You and me both.
I mean, I grew up, when we first started talking about it, and you said she was America's sweetheart, I'm like, frankly, I couldn't name a movie or anything that I knew she was in.
Yeah. I'm pretty much with you. I just know that my dad loved Natalie Wood and watched her movies. What did you know of Natalie Wood before we started to delve into
that she drowned?
Her mysterious death.
That is it. I didn't even know she was involved that much.
And you didn't watch her movies? You're not a fan?
No, but in looking online, yeah, I recognized quite a few of the names. Bob and Ted and Carol and Alice or something like that.
Yeah, I recognized the Christmas one.
I had no idea she was in that. I didn't know she was in that. Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Geez, but when you look at the movies she was in, it's like a list of who's who for male actors down through the years. I mean, all the big names.
She truly was like America's sweetheart, yeah.
James Garner, and of course, Wagner. But, and even Wagner, I remember watching as a kid, and I looked it up. I was like 10 to 13 years old. It Takes a Thief, and I actually remembered what it was kind of about.
Okay, I don't know if I watched that one.
And then I remember he was on Heart to Heart, but I think I probably only watched one or two episodes.
Yeah, that sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, those two, and that's all I really knew about him even. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and she was in so many movies; it's incredible. And he was in quite a few too. I do remember, looking back on it, I do remember, most of the stuff I watched growing up were, typical young guy, grew up, went in the Army, so I watched a lot of the old war movies and stuff, and they might do some cameos in there, but like I said, just It Takes a Thief, that's the only one I really remember watching him in and liking it, and so it was quite a shock to
yeah, I mean,
I'm going
to admit, I was not a fan of either one.
Yeah, Christopher Walken was on the boat that night, too, and I could actually name some movies he was in.
Yeah, me too.
But not Wagner, and definitely not Natalie Wood. So this has been...
well, they're before my time.
Exploring this case has been a real education. Real education. So where do we want to start with this discussion?
Well, people may wonder why in the world that we're involved in this.
Yeah, that's a good question. I certainly, like I said, I knew she drowned. That was it. And until a couple days ago, even the date escaped me, but I've got it down now, because I've done my thing as a forensic scientist, looked at the dates and the times and done some math on it, and we'll discuss that. But, yeah, if you would have asked me a week ago to name any specifics about this case, forget it. And it's not like I forgot it. I did not know anything about her death, and it is very tragic, especially what I've learned talking to you about it, listening to you. So
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much speculation out there from family to people who were on the boat and changing their stories a couple of times, who were on the boat, who will remain nameless. There's just so much out there. One thing I did read, I'm not going to quote the article, but I found it a little upsetting with all the speculation out there. Right? We've heard about, Robert Wagner murdered her, and then some say absolutely not. He would have nothing to do with that. From A to Z, right, of information out there, but it's all speculation. Nobody really knows. I read an article where they were talking about that one of the detectives showed a reporter some file that Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau has evidence of some kind of a murder list or a murder book or something, and that they have evidence that this is a homicide. I don't believe that, because, Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, their Homicide Bureau, I've worked on many cases and having to interface with them. And by no means, there is no way that these people would sit on information they know is a homicide and not pursue it and make arrests. They are they are very much the bulldog that they're known as. There's no way. That is false information. That there's no way they have evidence that this is a homicide and they're sitting on it and not doing something about it.
Yeah.
I don't believe it for a minute.
Yeah, there's a reason they're called the Bulldogs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the case was closed years ago, one could say, or left open. But in 2011, they reopened the case, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and investigated it thoroughly for 6 years. In 2017, they closed it. And then in 2018, the famous television program 48 Hours did a series on it, a little documentary. Now, the key players, and you can go and look this up and find this out for yourself. We're not going to talk about too many names as we go through this, but it happened out in Marina del Rey, out by Catalina Island. There were a bunch of boats out there, moored, anchored, and partying back and forth, and of course there is a current out in the ocean. The captain of the ship was Captain Dennis Davern. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name. The boat, the yacht, the family yacht, was owned by Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood, and we'll come back to its name, but it was captained by Dennis Davern. Also on the ship with Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood was the co-star of Natalie Wood's on the movie Brainstorm, which I've never seen, but we watched the trailer of it earlier, and it looks like a remake would be pretty up to speed with some of the sci-fi nowadays. They could do some fantastic CGI and stuff. But Christopher Walken was also on that yacht that night. And we have witnesses from different boats that were nearby that have come up over the years and given statements about what they've seen, and looking at the boat itself, to say that you actually heard scuffling and stuff coming from the main cabin, the Wagner's cabin where they were at on their boat, and with all the other noise and whatnot from the other, I find that difficult to believe. That you could hear much.
There's no way.
I know from being out on the water and out in open fields, in the infantry and stuff like that, that sound does carry quite a ways over the surface of the water. But when you got all that other noise going on, I don't know. Now, here's the interesting thing. They were married twice, married for a period of time, and then they divorced, and then they remarried. And when they met, they did a movie together. And after that, Natalie was in a movie called Splendor in the Grass or something like that.
Yeah.
And supposedly, from what we've read and learned in the last day or so, because we're like, I wonder, we did find an article, didn't we, that said that the yacht was named because of that movie, Splendor in the Grass. I think she starred with Warren Beatty in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, when you look at her movies that she was in, it's a name dropper. She's with all the big stars up and coming through the ages. It's just incredible. And having just seen the Oscars, it's amazing that she didn't walk away with, a dozen Oscars for herself. But
yeah.
So anyway, those are the actors, and that's the setting. They had docked and they went to a restaurant, and according to the witnesses at the restaurant, they were drinking rather profusely, and then they went back out to their boat and were partying on the boat some more out there. According to the captain and whatnot, Mr. Wagner was extremely intoxicated. Some said that Natalie wasn't, but I can tell you, looking at her autopsy report, specifically the toxicology report, she had a blood alcohol content of 0.14, which according to standards back then, 0.1 was legal intoxication. Today is 0.08. So with someone with her stature, she was, I would say she was fairly intoxicated. And I couple that with looking at her toxicology. She had a considerable amount of pharmaceuticals that she was taking for insomnia and antihistamines, hypothyroidism medication. There was an opiate-based. She had some Darvon listed here, Valium for anxiety. Now, whether it was prescribed for anxiety, I don't know, but these are the prescription medications that are listed on the autopsy report, which, not surprisingly, if folks, the listeners, aren't aware of that, you can go online, and it's incredible a number of autopsy reports that, not photographs, but the reports that you can find online for major stars and celebrities over the years. And that's where I found hers, all pages of it, so that you can read for yourself. Do you have anything you'd like to interject right here?
I was just going to say that, the reason why I got involved on this case is because I was helping the assigned Los Angeles Sheriff's Department assigned detective on Natalie Wood's case. I was helping him on a different case of his in Santa Clarita, California. So I knew that he was involved with Natalie's case. Mm-hmm. So I remember wondering, I should work that case with my prophetic gifts to see what really happened that day, since it's such a mystery. But I never really was introduced to the case otherwise. Okay. So as a result of praying and pursuing the Lord for the truth of what occurred, I got that information, which we're going to share with everyone. And I did send this information to Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau so that they could put it in her file if they want to.
Okay.
Oh, and what I did was, just like I do at law firms, I'm a litigation and trial paralegal. So I always test the information that the Lord gives me, and it needs to match scientific or any other kind of tangible evidence. Okay? I'm not just, it needs to be tested for truth. So I pursued, against the information God told me, I pursued your friend, Dr. Wecht, who you know from your TV series.
Yep.
And so I sent him a message through you of the information God told me, and he shared his analysis as well, which we will share with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, Dr. Cyril Wecht will cover his input and response to us in quite a bit of detail here shortly. You mentioned that detective, and I've seen that with the New York detectives that I've worked with and others. It's an interesting phenomenon that happens to police officers, particularly homicide detectives. And it's very fitting, I think, that LA County Sheriff's Department, that the Detective Bureau is called the Bulldogs. In fact, they should probably be called the Pit Bulls or something.
That's my nickname.
Or something, you know.
My nickname is Pitbull at the law firm.
Is the strongest bite I think they have.
Yeah.
Or Akitas have a really strong bite, too.
Yeah, they bite and don't let go till they want to.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of them, like Kevin Gannon that I worked with, he was so attached with those first two cases that we cover in our book that he made a promise to the family, and after he retired, he continued to work on the cases, and they do, and we know another one, Chief, if he's listening, a case from 1975.
Yeah, he's a retired police chief, but we still call him Chief.
He's still working on that one. And,
I helped him on that one.
Yeah, and we should actually talk about that one sometime. But, and you really got to take your hat off to folks like that just won't let go. They want justice for the family. They want justice for the victim. And most of the time they're doing it out of pocket, pro bono, and not getting paid for it.
That's what we do. We've never been paid.
So
we use our own money on cases. Yep.
So anyway, on that note, for those listeners who are not familiar with my background, Kevin Gannon and I wrote the book, the Bible, so to speak, on case studies and drowning forensics. And this is a drowning case. So, and I'm also a drowning survivor myself, so I'm very near and dear to the experience. But I'm going to go over some of the forensics very quickly from the autopsy. And one, to demonstrate this is the kind of stuff that Dr. Wecht looked at in making his assessment in conjunction with what you shared with him, Kymmi, and to show that at least the forensics in this story, no matter, there's so many theories out there. There's as many theories about what happened out there as there are kinds of ketchup or catsup, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's 2-3 dozen, you name it, and pick your flavor of the week. But the forensics in this case do stand, and they do stand the test of science. To start off with, it was listed as an accidental drowning, a manner of death accident. You have natural, accidental suicide, homicide, and undetermined. They labeled it as accidental. And if for cause of death they put drowning. I differ with them there. Drowning is the scenario. The cause of death should be medical. And in this case, it would be asphyxia or hypoxia, whichever, but, lack of oxygen to the body causing death. Now, looking at the time, we have the time that she was in the water, the time that she was on land, and in this case, a very, very odd situation. They put her body in a barometric chamber. We'll come back to that. But we do have, she went into the water reportedly around midnight, and the radio message to shore was about 1:30 a.m. So, roughly speaking, we'll say about midnight she went in the water. The body was recovered from the ocean at 7:44, and that means that she was in the water approximately 8 hours. And 8 hours in the water would be because it slows down the decomposition process, which also increases cooling. And the more quickly a body becomes cool, the slower, the decomposition and so forth. The hotter a body, or the more clothing you have on, or the more fat within your tissue, the warmer it keeps you and the faster you'll decompose. But she was a small person, and she's in the water. So the 8 hours in the water would equate to about 4 hours if she were lying on land. And then she was recovered around 8. And then the first temperature I have is a liver temperature and an environment temperature, and that's at 1:30 on the 29th. So now we have two different points of time. We have about 4 hours in the water, then 8 hours in the water, which would be the equivalent of 4 hours on land, and then a clear 5.5 hours on land. So now we're at about 9.5 hours total equivalent had she been deceased and laying there on the deck of the boat for 9.5 hours. Her body temperature was 65 degrees, her liver, at the time that that the temperature was taken, and the environmental temperature was 63. There's a lot of research out there on different equations to use. The most common is called the Glaser equation, and that is you take 97.8 minus the body temperature, and then you divide that by 1.5 degrees per hour. Some research has suggested that you should use 2 hours instead of 1.5. But we can also see, like I said before, that water, it increases or decreases decomposition by a factor of 2. And one could argue that that's because it increases the rate at which the body cools by 2. So then if you divide it by 4, you can see you come up with a completely different number. But if you do the math, you end up with 97.8 minus 65, which is 32.8, divided by 1.5 is approximately 22 hours. So 22 hours, if you divide that by 4, you end up with about 5.5, 6 hours. And that would equate, when we start looking at liver mortis, rigor mortis, rigidity, the settling of the blood, rigor, and then, of course, we're talking about algor mortis, tepidity, the temperature of the body. It all should match up. And so we're looking at a period of about 9 hours. Well, rigor takes about 12 hours to go in, and then it persists for 12 hours, and then it takes about 12 hours to come out. And she was assessed at 1:30 with all of the small muscles being at 3 to 4 and a 4+. And on their scale, on the autopsy report, a 4+ is extreme degree. Now, it goes into the small muscles first and then the large muscles. And when it comes out, it does the same thing. It comes out of the small muscles first and then the large muscles. So when you look at all the muscles they're talking about, jaw, shoulder, wrist, knee, ankle, these are all the small muscles. So everything is lining up perfectly. In fact, the comment on liver mortis, lividity, the settling of the blood, says that it's very slight and that it's a 1+ and it blanches under pressure. Well, at about 10 hours, the lividity is fixed, and you can press on it, press on it, press on it. And instead of it being purple, and then you can see where the fingertips were, because it's white, and then the blood rushes back in. At about 10 hours, it becomes fixed. It starts fixing. And after 12, forget it. You can press on it all you want, and it will not change color. So everything is lining up perfectly with when she was reported to go in, when she was recovered, and when she got to the morgue. Everything lines up perfectly for that approximately 9 to 10 hour window for the issue. On the cause of death, hypoxia, human lungs generally weigh around, unless you're a super huge person, but for someone her size, the average person, you're talking 700, maybe 800 grams for the right and left lung together. If you're over 1,000 grams, then you got to start wondering where'd the weight come from, and typically it's from the water. So we have left and right lung, 750 and 800 grams respectively for 1,550 grams, which is a clear indicator that there was water in her lungs, and then coupled with the larynx, trachea, and bronchi are filled with a large amount of white froth. That's the water mixing with the oxygen in the lungs, and sometimes it will become pink because it mixes with the blood that's in there. So everything there is a definitive drowning scenario. The only thing that I would need to do more research on, because it threw me off, putting her in a barometric chamber, and if you look at the description of the bruising, and that becomes important with the description you gave me, Kymmi, is you need a beating heart for bruises, and which means if you are impacted, you need some time, 10, 15 minutes, 5 minutes for the bruising to develop. So I was trying to find out, if I put a body under pressure, is that going to increase the wound? Or if I
are you talking about a dead body or
a deceased body, or a less pressure, is that going to draw the blood out of the skin? And I there's so much mixed stuff out there. I'm still out on that one. I really can't figure out.
We'll have to ask Dr. Wecht.
But generally speaking, it said
it's going to contribute somehow to probably make the bruising to appear worse.
It's got to, because everything
we could ask
I
Dr.
found,
Wecht.
it said that a barometric chamber can be used to increase the healing in bruising. Now, in order for a bruise to heal, it has to age, and so it goes from red to maroon to green and yellow, right?
Right, but when someone's deceased, there's no healing.
Yeah, but if we still have the pressure working on it, and see that's...
Right. But we can ask Dr. Wecht. He'll probably tell us.
That's one for the body farm. They really need to go, instead of burying a body in the woods,
it's going to contribute somehow, definitely.
Yeah, that's a real mystery
to probably make the bruising look worse than...
I would think so. I would think if it increases healing, that it would take the bruises that would be sustained maybe even after death from striking the boat and going under it.
It's going to do
whatever.
Something. There's cause and effect of everything, right?
Could enhance the healing, which would advance it from just being an injury or a bump to being a full-blown bruise, even though you're deceased. I don't know. That's a really good question. But science-wise, I'm satisfied with it. I looked at it, and I said, it looks like an accidental drowning to me.
Okay.
So now, what did God tell you?
To the detective who worked her case, was assigned to her case, and who I was involved on another case of his in Santa Clarita. He said that she looks like Natalie Wood from her autopsy reports. Looks like she is a victim of abuse, physical abuse. Right?
Yeah.
Something happened to her. Which I understand his point of view. Because he's using, he's doing his investigative work from material things, from tangible things, from witnesses, etc. However, I cheat. I call myself a cheat sheet. I go to God, and God shows me with my prophetic gifts. Mm-hmm. As I've done on other cases, people can go and listen to the other episodes. So, for me, I sought the Lord to do praise and worship. I'm a Christian ordained reverend, have prophetic gifts, ministry gifts that so happen to work on missing person cases and homicide cases. And in this case, we all want to know what in the world happened to Natalie Wood that day. Even the detective wants to know. He says, Los Angeles Sheriff's Department says that this is an undetermined open case, still active.
Mm-hmm.
The detective in charge says in an interview online, people can read, he says that there is no evidence of a homicide, but there's no evidence of an accident, right? They don't know what happened on the yacht Splendor that evening that she went into the dark waters. Okay, so I, with my gifts, I sought the Lord, went into praise and worship, and he shows me things. So I'm like, people call it a seer, but I am not a psychic. I'm not a medium. I am a Christian reverend. So I was seeing, the Lord showed me that Natalie Wood, do you want to hear this now? Dr. G?
Yep.
Okay. So Natalie Wood, let me tell you right now, all this information I did share with Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. So if they wanted, they could just put it in her file. Number one, Natalie Wood was never on or in or near an alleged dinghy by herself, as they claim. There was an argument on the deck. The Lord showed me there was an argument on the deck that night between Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood on the back of the boat. Now, as I learned because of being involved with the detective who handled Natalie Wood's case, right? I have read him say online in an article that they found 2 new witnesses who heard and seen them arguing at the back of the boat, Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood. And all of a sudden there's arguing, and then all of a sudden it's quiet. That means someone fell in the water, and it's Natalie Wood, right? All of a sudden they're quiet and never heard the arguing again. Now that, of course, I'm not going to copy information. I don't do that. I'm just seeking the truth. And that their testimony, those new witnesses that the detective found recently in the last couple of years, those 2 people, those new witnesses on the yacht next to the Splendor yacht that evening are new witnesses. They back up what it is the Lord is showing me. Okay? And Wagner and Wood are arguing over issues, jealousy issues, because the Lord is showing me that they're arguing over a third party. Okay. Wagner's drunk. Natalie's been drinking. They both have. Okay.
Yeah, and she has quite a bit of
prescription drugs on board. Yes.
That have nasty contraindications.
Right, I understand that God didn't show me that. But he did show me that she was not an alcoholic. She does not have what we would call a drinking problem. Okay? She doesn't. You could have fun, you could be over your drinking, and which she did that night. But that doesn't mean she's an alcoholic. And that's not what the Lord showed me. Honestly, the Lord showed me she has a prescription drug problem. Oh, okay. She abuses prescription drugs. Okay? But anyway, Wagner blamed Wood for flirting or giving too much attention to another man. The Lord kept showing me this is over some kind of jealousy issue. And so on the back, they're on the Splendor, the yacht Splendor. That evening, they're on the back of the boat.
The stern.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Wagner was being accusatory over another man. Jealousy was happening. And Natalie's back was to the ocean and near the edge of the yacht. And Wagner held Wood physically, like shaking her gently. You know how you just, let's say I'm facing you, okay, Dr. G? And you know how sometimes you just grab someone's wrist and you're just shaking? It's not violent. It's not domestic violence. I'm not talking anything that any of us would do this. You know, when you're trying to get someone's attention, you kind of grab them and you're like, hey, and okay, so that's what's going on. There's no domestic violence going on here. And so Wagner held Wood. Okay, so Natalie's back is to the ocean near the edge of the yacht. Wagner held Wood physically, shaking her, and as a result, she went into the ocean. He did not push her. This is not a plan. This is something that from drinking too much, both of them. And that they're arguing over a jealousy issue. And incidentally, she falls in.
Did you see?
But he didn't push her in.
Did you see like she tried to pull away from him and lost her balance and stumbled in? Or?
No, I really, she is, as the Lord is showing me, this is not some, she would not, if she was out there alone, she would not have fallen in. Okay. This is an accident. This is not some homicide or, this is.
There's no mens rea here. I think the other word.
Well, I'm not a cop, and I'm not in
criminal intent.
I'm not in criminal law, so I'm not even going to touch on that. I am in civil law as a litigation trial paralegal, but in this capacity, I'm a Christian reverend. So I'm not going to touch on that. I just know that absolutely this is not something that Robert Wagner would do intentionally by any means. So Wagner was too drunk to see straight or to be able to do anything about the fact that he inadvertently pushed her, or caused her to go into the ocean. And so it's unfortunate that everyone was drinking too much that night. And so Natalie Wood went under the water quickly because she could not swim. And as a result, she sank immediately and drowned. Natalie Wood's dead body went under the yacht, and not sure the location of her body went when it was found, but at some point her body did go under the yacht. So as she fell into the water, the Lord is showing me these bruisings, guys, where she looks like, the detective said she looks like a victim of abuse. The yacht did this to her. As she fell in, she hit the yacht, and if you look at her autopsy, it's on one side of her body mostly. So she falls in, and this is what causes her. And plus, the Lord showed me she went under the yacht. So her face, she has on the left side of her face, all of that is going to be bruising from most likely the yacht. Okay. I know that you said that because she's been drinking other nights, not just the one, that, you stumble and fall, right? When you're drinking a little much. So I can see you thinking that some of her bruising comes from that.
Yeah, could be stumbling
from a day earlier or so. Yeah.
Because it looked like most of the bruising was like from the knees down.
Yeah.
Banging in.
I mean, if you're going to do some,
like
let's say that the theory of that she's a victim of abuse. Well, Robert Wagner, I don't know how tall he is, but he looks like he's a 6-foot type guy, right? And I don't even know how tall she is. Do you?
No.
She seems like she would have been little, like 5'2", 5'3", or something, 5'6". So, I mean, what is Robert Wagner going to do? Hold on a minute, Natalie Wood. Let me get down onto my knees and beat you up from the knees down? Your legs? All of her bruising are mostly down on her legs, the bottom portion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes no logical sense there. I'm trying to find the picture, the autopsy. But, yeah. That's just, no. Okay, so I'm trying to catch up on my notes here. She did go under the yacht, and Wagner cared about Wood very much. He did not intentionally push her into the ocean or intentionally caused her to go into the ocean, or even, even aware of the fact that he did because he had too much alcohol on board. However, due to his physical physically somehow caused her to go in. Wagner was drunk, distraught, and cried. Now, I pick up that Robert Wagner was never the same, that when Natalie died, a part of Robert Wagner died as well. He was very, very sad. By no means would he want to harm Natalie Wood or cause her death. What is it that you're finding, Dr. G?
I'm going to look up his height. Wait real quick for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do pick up, after all of this, that, I believe that Robert Wagner knew that she fell in. He's like, oh my gosh, like, where did she go? And, when you're just too drunk, you just can't see straight or know what happened. What just happened? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. that how in the world are you supposed to help someone in that condition, right? If you don't even really know what exactly happened. Oh, okay, so Natalie Wood was 5'4", 120 pounds, and Robert Wagner is 5'11". So by no means, I mean, how could she, if he's abusing her, why are her legs bruised up?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to get down in your knees and start beating someone up from the knees down or the waist, the hips down. So anyway, I believe that he had an inkling of what happened, okay? I believe that somebody let that dinghy go on purpose as a cover. Now, she goes in the same spot as the dinghy's set free by someone. I don't believe Natalie Wood even touched it, okay? So if the body is going by the current, so is the dinghy in the same area, going by the same current. So therefore, that's why the dinghy is found somewhat in the same vicinity as Natalie Wood's body.
Yeah, she was probably headed toward shore, and the dinghy made it all the way because sitting on the surface, it created a flat space for not only the current to carry it, but the wind to push against it. And generally the wind blows towards the shore, right? So it makes sense that the dinghy would have been found all the way up on shore.
So the Lord shows me that, they did construct up some cover-up stories. Tales, let's call it tales. Not that anyone are concealing a murder, but they changed the story a little bit. Said that that she took the dinghy and she was going to go wherever, but that's not true.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of twisted information there that they did conjure up. Waiting, how long did they wait? An hour and a half before reporting her? Yeah, that's fishy.
Of course, if he was that drunk, it may have taken him a little bit of time to figure out what he was going to do. We did see an interview. I don't remember who the interviewer was on the talk show, but if I recall correctly, there was a comment made that his first divorce with her, because they were married twice, was the second most devastating incident or point in his life next to or after her death. And like you said, from what God showed you, he was never the same after she died, right?
Yeah, I was going to read something else, and let's read Dr. Wecht.
Yes. So anyway, Dr. Wecht, folks, if you don't know him, W-E-C-H-T. What a wonderful man, educated beyond just amazing.
Oh, he has his JD and his MD. He's an attorney and a medical doctor.
I mean, just incredible.
That is just really nice.
Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. He reviewed our work in writing the book, Case Studies in Drowning Forensics, Gannon and I. And we met with him several times before the production of the show, the series on oxygen. And then because of our relationship with him, we asked him to participate in the series with us. So he's in several of the episodes with us. So after looking at the autopsy report myself, I sent him a copy of it, and he was very familiar with it. And we sent him your analysis that God had revealed to you. Your scenario.
That it was the yacht that did it.
Yep.
It was the yacht.
And Dr. Wecht, like I said, if you don't know who he is, look him up. JFK, RFK, Chappaqua, I can't even pronounce that.
John
Benet Ramsey, the list goes on. Dr. Omalu in L.A. and Dr. Wecht are the ones who took on the NFL for concussion. If you've never seen that movie, go see it. Wonderful movie. We're talking a man of courage here who will not back down from the truth And what did Dr. Wecht say about this case?
Yeah, he responded after giving him my analysis that God told me occurred, and emphasizing that it was the yacht that beat her up, gave that appearance of abuse. And he wrote back and he said, your scenario is quite plausible. I have reviewed this case before, and I don't find a basis to call it a homicide. Nor did I, nor does Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
Neither did I.
Yeah. So we would say that this is unfortunately, as the initial medical examiner ruled it, because right now it stands, they changed it to undetermined, right, so that they can reinvestigate it.
Yeah.
But the original that they said was an accident.
Accidental.
I would say absolutely. This is an unfortunate accident.
Yeah.
It's somehow, some way, through the arguing, this is an accident that occurred that not only, I believe that even Wagner was shocked about. Where did she just go? Type thing, you know? So it's sad, and he's never been the same, and I think it's terrible for what he's gone through.
Yeah.
All these years, and I hope that he finds some peace.
Yeah. Until then, it's what Kevin and Anthony and Mikey would call a cuppy. Case undetermined, pending investigation. And if any new evidence comes forward, some have speculated that if Wagner were to die first, that Walken would spill the beans, but I believe those two have a very close friendship, and I think their mutual respect and love for Natalie as a human, I think this is going to just have to rest with that it was a horrific, absolutely horrific accident.
Well, I think that, like I said, you know, there's a little twisted of a tale going on, you know, of the dinghy story.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't believe that there is.
So, in wrapping up then, do you have anything else to say?
No, just guys, if you can share with your family and friends and click follow so that you guys can be automatically notified when we upload a new episode. And we thank you so much for joining us for today, and hope that you join us again. God bless you so much.
We'll look for you. You know, in our stats, we continue to have new cities out there, and new countries and everything, and it's just exciting to see.
We've been heard. I think
grow.
We're minus like 1 or 2 states, and we've been
yeah.
heard in every United States.
Yeah.
And over 30 countries.
Yep.
Pretty amazing.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
And
so
in
keep sharing,
in the near
guys.
future, we're gonna talk about another case that you worked locally, and then we'll get into some more conversations. We'd like to do some more conversations. Folks have reached out to us and said that they really like those.
Yeah, we haven't had time to do a new episode because we've been extremely busy. So
Please contact us via Kymmi's Facebook and let us know what topics you'd like us to talk about, or maybe a case you'd like us to look at. And
you guys can contact me on Facebook. I'm found as Kymmi, Kymmi, Bloomberg, BLOOMBERG, and that is where you need to talk to me through Instant Messenger.
And you are providing prophetic words for folks too, correct?
Yeah, I'm starting. The Lord wants me to use my prophetic gifts on helping people individually or in a group. So I'm going to be making myself more accessible to people through social media.
Yeah, you don't need to be here and be in the same room with us. Just contact us and we'll set it up. And we can use telephone, Skype, Zoom, whatever it takes.
Anybody want a prophetic word?
Yep.
Contact me through Facebook.
Yep. And
all right.
That's it. Thank you.
Well, God bless you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.